Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Corner of Food and Fun. 7th and Elm as Indiana State Coaches Show rolls along. We got a great show here for you tonight. Joe Hastings, the wide receiver coach for Indiana State, will join us, as well as Dante Hendrix, stand out in that wide receiver room. Going to be joined by Kyle Walsh, the head coach of Indiana State women's and men's cross country, will join us as well. And, of course, head coach Curt Mallory, who joins us here to start off the show. And Coach, always great to be here at the Corner of Food and Fun and recap what was a weekend for your team. And I know it wasn't the result that you guys in the program wanted over the weekend. What's been the biggest message that you've been talking to guys like Dante and with your staff like Joe here in attendance? And is that message as you move forward to your first practice day tomorrow?
Well, it'll be good to get back to work tomorrow. Obviously disappointed about the loss and the way that we came out and didn't get the job done. But, we got a great group of young men. They came back to work on Sunday. We learned from our mistakes. We're not going to hang our heads, and we're going to get back to work. And that's exactly the approach that we've taken. And we'll get back practicing tomorrow.
A week ago, we kind of discussed that challenge of not hanging the head after a loss to Kansas because internally in that locker room there was a ton of confidence that was going to be a win for you guys to start off the year and didn't get it. How do you and your staff really meet with your team to make sure that the disappointment from this loss does not bleed in to what is going to be a very important week against a really good opponent who we'll highlight later in the show?
Well, I think this is a veteran group that's been there before. We've had our backs against the wall. We had our backs against the wall last year. We were 2-4, coming off a very difficult loss, not only in overtime to South Dakota State, having a tough loss at home at Northern Iowa when we felt like we were going to play better, and then of course losing at homecoming. And this is a group that fought back, won 5 in a row after doing that. And this is a type of group that during the game you saw never a panic. As poorly as we played at times, what we talked about at halftime is great teams are going to find a way to still win. And there was never a doubt throughout the game that we were going to win the game. And unfortunately, at the end, weren't able to finish it.
I think the other part of it is, too, and you kind of get it. You always look at a game from your perspective, whether it's a coach, a player, and a fan. You look at it, what your team could have done differently in the game. But part of this equation, too, is give credit where credit is due. Yep. Dayton came in with an outstanding game plan. They executed it well. They had extremely talented guys. We talked about Jack Cook last week. Mm-hmm. We talked about Troutman, their tight end, who's an NFL prospect. I know that's maybe difficult at times for yourself to do because there are things you yourself could have cleaned up. But also you do got to tip the cap to Dayton. They're going to have a really successful year because they have a darn good football team with darn good football players.
Well, I think going into it we knew that they were going to obviously be a very good football team, very well coached, and they're as good as advertised. The tight end was an exceptional player. Quarterback came out. He got a lot of great experience last year, playing 10 of 11 games, and he played like a veteran. And he played very well. And on defense, they flew around, made some plays when they needed to.
We'll talk to Dante later on in the show and Joe as well. That's a unit that I know you're very optimistic in and what they can accomplish this year in passing the football. What makes you guys so optimistic when you have guys like Dante, whether it's Dakota Caton as well in that room? There's many, many others. Dante Jones had a really good first week at Kansas.
Sure.
It really does seem that group is starting to form in the one that you guys really like and can rely on.
Well, I think continuity, too. It really started last year, with Ryan at quarterback and the offensive line up front. And then, having wide receivers like Dante Hendrix and Dante Jones. And you got Dominic Daphne and Rontrez Morgan and Dejon Collins and Joe Wilt. And there's a big group of guys there. And those guys have all played. And, just the timing and the work that those guys put in. Those are guys you have to pull off the field. Whether it be in the summertime, they're always wanting to be out there. They're always trying to get extra work in, and they love football. And it really shows. They just get better and better every day.
Head coach Curt Mallory joins me here at the Corner of Food and Fun. 7th and Elm, it's the Indiana State Coaches Show, recapping the loss to Dayton over the weekend. Coach, I don't want to characterize it in this way, and you can maybe characterize it differently if you don't like the way I characterize it. But I think it seems like, through the first 2 weeks at times, I think you can sense that Ryan feels like I think he's playing with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and it's a guy that can take a lot of pressure. But I think at times you watch him out there on the field, and maybe you don't see necessarily the guy that was playing loose and just really slinging the ball over the field that we saw towards the tail end of last season. Seems like sometimes maybe he's carrying the ball, maybe taking a few more hits than he should from a coaching perspective than you'd like to see him. But how do you kind of calm him a little bit? And maybe not just calm him, but how do you kind of get Ryan back into that groove? Because, as we talked about last year, turning the football over is something that was almost non-existent for your club, and so far that's been a theme through 2 weeks.
Yeah, you go back to last year, and there's a lot of good players that surround Ryan, and that's what makes a team work, makes an offense work. And there are times I'm sure he's wanting to do as much as he can to win, but there's a lot of competitiveness on that side of the ball as there is the other side. And you see that come out, and he's trying to fight for extra yards. You love that about him. He's stiff-arming guys. He's doing this. He's putting his head down. But you're exactly right. We've got to calculate some of that stuff. It'll come together. I have full confidence in Ryan. There's never a doubt what he's capable and where he's going to take us. And there's no question that him at quarterback makes us a better offense.
And I think, too, maybe that's part of what's key about this week for you and your staff is it part of taking that pressure off, not just of him, but your team? Because I think for the first time in our 3 years together, that was a game that you were kind of watching in the second half. Even though there was belief that your group could come back, I think you could just sense in the crowd and everybody at the stadium that there was a lot of pressure to try to break the game wide open at any given moment, and trying to release that pressure, because that's what was so much fun a year ago, was your group was playing loose in every game. It didn't really matter to the situation.
I felt like that, like it did last year. Although we weren't playing as well as I liked, made some mistakes, I never once felt that we weren't going to win the game. And I know that was the feel on the sidelines. That was the feel in the locker room, is that somehow, some way, we're going to find a way to win. And that's what carried over not only from the Kansas game, but also last year. We were going to find a way. And even the ones that maybe we didn't win, maybe it was South Dakota State or maybe it was Missouri State or what have you, still felt like we had a chance to win those games as well. So, the thing that we'll do, obviously we'll get back to work tomorrow, but, I like the way that the team has come back. I can see in their eyes they're disappointed, but they're ready to get back to work, and that's exactly what we'll do tomorrow.
For you that get this look at the program that you do, of course, being the head guy, and you mentioned to me after the game immediately, Luke, what happened today was on me. Knowing that, the guys you have in your locker room, and the guys you have on your staff, and what you have as your capability. What makes you so optimistic that this is going to get turned, that this is a group, as you mentioned to your group and your team, me and the other day, look, I've been a part of 0-2 before. I've also been a part of teams that have turned it around and that have been able to click and make that turn. Why can this team do that?
Well, I think the main message was obviously I'm responsible and 100% responsible. But what you have in that locker room is you want a lot of guys that want to say it's their fault and they're taking ownership. And there's more than just – there's a lot. They understand that it takes everybody. And we lose as a team and we win as a team, and I want everyone to understand that we're going to get this thing turned around, but we're going to get it turned around together. And these players believe in the coaches, and the coaches believe in these players. It's a tight-knit group, and you can see the relationships and the bonds being formed, and how well they care about each other, and how much work that we've all put in together, that we're all in this thing together.
Well, and I know it's going to be a really big week with a really good opponent this weekend in Eastern Kentucky, but we'll get to them later on the show. Coach, we appreciate you stopping by here for the first segment. Once again, that was head coach Curt Mallory. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Kyle Walsh of Indiana State Women's and Men's Cross Country. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show from 7th and Elm. Monday night in Terre Haute means it's the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. I'm Luke Martin alongside Kyle Walsh, the head coach of Indiana State Women's and Men's Cross Country, joins us here for our Olympic Sports Spotlight. Coach Walsh, it's always good to see you, buddy. And Man, it was a really good start for your group this past weekend in Valparaiso.
It's a pleasure, Luke. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a great weekend. We opened up against kind of a low-key meet. We had obviously Notre Dame Irish were there, but had some conference rivals as well. So it was a good kind of opener for us to see where we're at, test it. We haven't raced in cross country since November of last year, and even on the track we hadn't raced since May. So to kind of work all summer, May, June, July, and August, and now we finally get to race, they were chomping at the bit.
Kind of describe that different dynamic for those that maybe don't know what really goes into cross country from the standpoint of, as you mentioned, you have a lot of athletes that are on your roster that are competing for you right now that are going to be in the indoor and then ultimately in the outdoor season. You have some that are just with you for the cross country portion of the schedule, but some that also just competed over the last spring. So just kind of how you get your group together and just how that all kind of comes to the formation.
Absolutely. All of them pretty much run track as well. Some of them are specialists on the grass, the 5K, 6K for women, and 8K, 10K for men. Whereas a lot of the others are more of the tracksters, more of the 800 runners, milers that spend a little bit of time in the fall, more of like a base training and getting ready for track. But the common theme in cross country is we're all running the same distance. So the women are 5K, 6K runners, so we're all training for that. The unique thing in cross country, you score 5. So if you put 5 together, that's how you do the team score. So basically for us, we're trying to be really, really good through 5, and everything after that is increasing depth, raising the average of the team. And fortunately for us, we're really strong on both programs through 5 or 6. But it's just funny how the age difference is different on the men and women, and I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, you know, the women over the weekend, the only team that finished above them was nationally ranked Notre Dame. What is it about that group that you're really excited about that can build off of what was a good start?
Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame's a national class team. They're one of the favorites to be a top 10, 15 program every year. So us going out, kind of challenging a program like that, meant a lot. But if you look at our women's team, 6 of the top 8 runners from that race were seniors. So leadership means a lot among that group. So, fifth-year senior Brooke Moore came back and is in her final season for us. And so her with her track accolades coming off of that, we have other seniors on top of that. So 6 of the top 8 seniors. This is a big year for the women, absolutely. Whereas the men's side, out of 18 guys on the roster, 16 of them are either freshmen or sophomores eligibility. So it's a tale of two stories right now with these two teams. And the men are still very good, very capable in the Missouri Valley, but it's just a different dynamic seeing an experienced group of women versus a young group of guys coming together.
Is it odd for you when you're at a practice where maybe you want to yell out Akese's name and he's not there?
Well, Akese Medrano, yeah. I mean, we have a lot of guys like that came in kind of underdeveloped in high school that are up and coming. There's a lot of guys that are freshmen and sophomores where Akese was, if not ahead of it. And realistically, I think our big leader is Ryan Cash, who came back for a 5th year just as Brooke Moore did. So having that leadership on the older side there is going to be huge for our team, because the only other one that's not a freshman or sophomore is Isaac Bentz, and having those two guys lead our team there, it's going to be a big leadership responsibility on those two guys.
You mentioned the men's side. Despite there being a lot of youth, what is it about that youth that maybe once you get through this fall, when you get to the championship meets, you got a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in men's cross country, you go from high school where they run 5K to collegiately the championships are 10K. So they're basically doubling their distance, whereas the women go from 5K to 6K. So the transition is not as difficult for the women. The men, you bring in these 18-year-old boys going up against 22, 23, 24-year-old men. It takes a little bit of time. So we have a very young group, but the thing is, they're ahead of where a lot of the young groups we've had before. They're hungry, they're passionate about it. We raced a lot of them unattached this weekend to kind of see where they're at. They get a tester, and they're right up there with the big dogs. So we may have to make some hard decisions on if we're redshirting or activating guys. Whereas the women, we have a small recruiting class that we had last year, and so with this leadership, there's a lot of group right behind biding their time, ready to make their impact for next year, but we're looking at a heavy senior class with them for sure.
Kyle Walsh is our guest. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show from 7th and L Bar and Grill here in Terre Haute, Indiana State. Men's and women's cross country coming off a very strong performance over the weekend in the Crusader Open. You got an open weekend this weekend, but then after that's the John McNichols Invite. You also have pre-nats coming up later, as well as being able to host the national championships. Love to see, obviously, some Sycamores be able to make it that far. What is it about cross country here in Terre Haute that makes it special, and why people do call Terre Haute Cross Country Town USA?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the master schedule over the last 15 years, this will be our 11th national championship. So you think of everywhere in the country to go, 11 of those 15 times they picked Indiana State. So Jeff Martin's being the meet director, and he's done a good job. And so we're having a bidding year. So we have to put on a great show this year so that we can get more years to go in the future. So it's an important year for us to host, to show the community that they really care about this, having the national championship. the John McNichols invite's going to be pretty amazing here in 2 weeks. Stanford, Washington, the national champions, Northern Arizona, some Big Ten programs, Wisconsin, Purdue, Michigan, Illinois. They're all coming to see this course. And that's not counting the pre-national meet where there's going to be over 50 schools flying in, the national meet here. But you also think even the D3 meets, they're hosting nationals next year. The high school meets. Nike has the regional meet, the Twilight meet. We sell out every hotel from here to Indianapolis when these meets come into town. So it's pretty cool for the community as well and the restaurants. And so everyone likes coming here.
You know, for me, I just got started in Terre Haute in 2016, and I can remember interviewing David Timlin, Darius Washington, and Coach John McNichols. And my first introduction to Coach McNichols was previewing what was the outdoor championships for both David and Darius. Seems still just like yesterday. I know Coach McNichols was with us and with you guys in this program. What has his impact meant on you? I know really this program, we talk about it daily, but to be able to have an event like you guys will next weekend, I know you have a golf outing earlier in the year too where you honor him, but to just have that yearly event to just kind of give that reminder to a lot of athletes. I know they still remember Coach McNichols, but maybe for some of your newcomers that don't know quite the impact maybe he had.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think of Coach McNichols and you think of like big picture thinking, he goes out and with our great Greg Gibson's help, he saw this coal mine that he decides we're going to make this the national championship cross country course, and it's just a dump at that point. To have that vision and to think I can bring this to Terre Haute, Indiana, and work hard and among the staffs that he put together over those years. And now look at it come to fruition, 11 of the 15 years. But that's just the way he always thought. He thought big picture, why not us? You know, we're here in Terre Haute, Indiana. Everybody in the country is flying into us. He did the same thing when he developed the outdoor track, same thing with the indoor track. He always thinks big like that. And so our staff, being heavily alums, we have that same kind of mindset that we learned from Coach McNichols and Coach Gartland after their 33 years together at this program. So it's just pretty neat to see it all come together and think everybody in the country that's cross country, they think of Terre Haute when they go to the national championships.
You know, I was talking to Fritzy about it on the air over the weekend when Cassandra and Aaron were both honored during the football game at the end of the first quarter for, of course, their tremendous efforts in the outdoor season. You know, we spend a lot of our time around the football program, basketball in the winter, and then baseball in the spring in terms of what we do on the air like we are right now for our coaches show, which doesn't always get us to put the spotlight on sports like cross country or track and field. But you ran here at Indiana State. You've been a all-conference type performer at Indiana State. You've now coached here. I know there's a lot of pride that you have, but also just there's a lot of pride within that program with how much success you guys have had.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about all the meets that we have here, so on the weekends that we're hosting pre-nationals or homecoming weekend, my house basically becomes alumni city, 15 to 20 sleeping on couches, extra rooms, and I'm not the only house. There's several houses like that because the hotels go up, and Dave Patterson does a great job getting that out there and getting the best rates possible, him helping us. But basically, the alums love to be a part of this program, and I'm one of those. And so I talked with the team. We had a little time trial, and some of the alums came back and ran on the course for the first time since they were in college. They shared their experiences with them and how much this place means to them. And I talked to both teams about, you know, leaving a legacy behind that we've done long before us, and it'll go long after us, any of us on coaching staff. And I think they buy that. When there's a Sycamores, there's Sycamores for life, and it really is a loyal alumni group among the track and cross-country families.
It may be the biggest question I've asked you so far, but do you still have room in Hotel Walsh for alums that may be trying to come back?
Oh, man.
Or is they already filled and the rooms are booked?
Yeah, should I get on Airbnb or what should I do here? We'll see. But, yeah, reach out to me, let me know. But it is so much fun for me. Everybody knows they're welcome here, and I enjoy seeing all the alums from my age, older, younger. All of them are welcome.
Final question to you, Coach Walsh. Where do you want to see your group from the men and women's side improve with this week? Not really a week off, at least a week off from competition before you get to the McNichols invite next week.
Yeah, the rest of the way is big-time competition. We probably run against the best schedule in the country the rest of the way through. John McNichols invite, Notre Dame Invitational, and pre-national championships, 3 of the higher-class meets in the country, and all of that to gear us up towards the Missouri Valley Conference Championship. Both teams were picked 4th. Both teams would like to do better than that. Both teams have a legitimate shot to upset Bradley. The cool thing about cross-country is all 10 teams go to battle at the same exact moment. There's no tournament, there's no winning this and that. It's everybody at that same moment lining up, and anybody can beat anybody. So it'll be fun to see how we line up versus the rest of Missouri Valley. It's a great group. I hope people can come out to John McNichols Invitational and Pre-Nationals and check us out and root us on heading into the Missouri Valley Championship.
Coach Walsh, good luck. Great start to the year. We know it's going to be a great finish, too. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Once again, that was head coach Kyle Walsh. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Joe Hastings, wide receiver coach for Indiana State football. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. It's the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Indiana State gearing up for a showdown with Eastern Kentucky this weekend. Two teams that were right on the playoff bubble last year going to be competing for a big non-conference tilt. I'm Luke Martin, voice of the Sycamores, alongside wide receivers coach Joe Hastings joining us. Joe, always good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
How are you doing these days? I know a tough weekend for you guys in the program, but I know you guys are really anxious to get back out to work tomorrow and prepare for what's going to be a big week against Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, I think, right after the game, even, talking to the players and things like that, it's like we want to go out and play another one. You just want to get this taste out of your mouth. And I think that we have such a good group of players that there's no doubt they'll come out and they'll respond, and it'll be good. We'll have a good week of practice.
You've obviously been a part of this too, being as a player and now as a coach. When you go through an experience like you do the past weekend, when maybe you had a game where you were a favorite, unfortunately did not win the game, how does that help you now in a coaching role, maybe get guys like Dante and others to get through what was a tough weekend, but to know it is a long season and all of your goals are still in front of you?
Yeah, I think, it's adversity. And I think, you don't really – life is full of learning through failure. And, Coach talks about it all the time. We got to learn from these mistakes and correct them. And the positive is it's all correctable. And, it's just they're self-inflicted wounds. And once we get that taken care of, with the talent we have and how these guys are wired and how they approach every day and practice, and the sky's the limit for this group.
I know a couple weeks ago, heading into Kansas, you were able to go back to your alma mater, Washburn, which is in Topeka, Kansas, which is where the Sycamores went through basically their Fast Friday practice, preparing for the Kansas Jayhawks. That moment for you just to be able to go back and see some familiar faces and be on that familiar stomping ground, even though I know you and Jenna both, that's where you met in Topeka. It's not like you've been total strangers to Topeka, but that was one of the first times in a while you've actually been on campus.
Yeah, it was awesome to be back. I'm glad it worked out the way it did, and just a lot of good memories there, and it kind of takes you back. When you get done playing, I kind of live vicariously through these guys, and watching them, and it's their time now, but being able to go back there and spent a lot of time there, and again, I went through a lot of the same things they did. We had rough seasons, or started off slow and then finished strong, or whatever it was. But I think it plays into it. It's a part of the experience, and it was good to be back.
What was the one thing about your playing career? I know when I say one thing, that probably is not a very fair thing to ask you for. But what is that one thing from your playing career that led you to want to get in the coaching? What feel is maybe lit that fire within you to continue to do this?
I think, the thing you miss most when you get done playing is the locker room, and the camaraderie with your guys. And, when I got done playing and took some time away from it, I realized how much I missed it. And, I started working for the Eagles. I was in scouting. You're in a room watching film all day. I found myself more with coaches and talking ball, and I think that's the thing you get with this coaching staff is you kind of get that camaraderie, and then with the players, we got a great group of guys. I enjoy coming every day, seeing them, and I think you kind of that's the next best thing, from not playing. So I think that's the big thing is you still get that football environment that you're surrounded by.
Joe Hastings is our guest, wide receiver coach for Indiana State, as Indiana State preparing for Eastern Kentucky this weekend here in Terre Haute. It will be a 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday from Memorial Stadium. Before we really get to that, Joe, you kind of mentioned just the camaraderie that you guys have, the family within the staff. I'm very fortunate that Coach Mallory allows the access that I do, and being in, whether it's on meetings with you guys and seeing how you all interact. I think that's the one thing that maybe gets lost in it. I understand fans, of course, want to see the teams win, and you guys want to win it too, of course, but kind of get lost in the shuffle that you guys are people too, that you have lives as well. And I think that's what's so much fun about you guys as a staff is just the connection that you and I share, the connection that we have throughout the staff is what really makes this program special.
Well, I think that, that's a testament to Coach. I mean, he's big on family, and I mean, I know that there's never a time when something comes up, he doesn't even blink, it's go. And I think, when you enjoy coming to work every day and the people you work with, you have that environment that's, inclusive to what you're trying to do, and you love it. You like it. There's no dreading coming in. It's you want to come in, you want to get to work, again, that's Coach and the environment and the culture he's set, and it's awesome and a privilege to be a part of.
I see Amber Wilson with Riley. How's Addison Joe doing?
She's doing good. She's starting to sleep a little bit longer, so that's good. But I'm enjoying sleep again. But it's been good. My wife's a rock star. She's crushing the mom life.
You mentioned actually getting sleep. Even as a coach, there actually is a thing called sleep. I mean, I'm sure she's just helping you out and just keeping you up to study a little bit more film.
Oh yeah. No, there's no doubt about that. It's sleep is a hot commodity in the coaching environment.
Let's look towards your Group 1 before we get to Eastern Kentucky. Dante, who we'll talk to after this break, an extremely talented young man, but you have a lot of them in your room. When we were doing the wide receiver preview in fall camp, you kind of looked at me and you're like, Luke, I wish I could just talk about one guy, but we got about 8, 9, even maybe 10 guys that we can throw out there at any given time. Has that kind of lived up to what you thought it would as we were kind of going through fall camp?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's a great group to be around every day, and honestly, they make my job really easy because they're very motivated. They take a lot of pride in what they do. I think it's hard when you got to coach guys that don't necessarily have the drive, the self-starting mentality that these guys do. Like Coach touched on it, they're always in, they're always coming in, watching tape, doing jugs machines. I mean, in the wintertime, you just hear the thump, thump, thump constantly of the tennis ball machine going. But again, it makes our job easy because they want to be good, and they want to be coached, and they care. And when you have that passion and that work ethic, and good things happen. So it's a lot of fun to come in and be with them every day.
You were still at Michigan in 2017 when this program went through 0-11. But obviously here a year ago when Coach Mallory alluded to it in his opening comments of it wasn't the best start last year either. We were in a boat where kind of you knew you had to win out to give yourself a chance to maybe think about playoffs or just to have the year that you guys thought you could. Now kind of being in this spot, what is it about this group, knowing that there's so much back from a year ago that went through that experience, that this can be the weekend that really jump-starts a year that I know you guys are really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've never really been around a group of players that never really get mentally hijacked. You watch out throughout the whole season last year, there were times we're down by a lot, and you could never see it. They kind of ride the waves, and there's never too high, never too low, and that's what we always talk about in the offensive room is there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. You just got to keep riding with it like it's all the same, and just keep going, and one step at a time. And I think that going back to it's adversity, and it's you're going to have to overcome it at some point. It's not always going to be perfect, but that's our job to get them coached up and put them in the best position we can, and then obviously them taking the accountability on that. And so I don't think there's ever any panic in that room because I think that our whole team knows what we can do when we all are on the same page.
Biggest thing for you guys is an offense. Where do you want to see that jump from this past weekend against Dayton to this weekend against Eastern Kentucky, who's going to boast a really good defense?
I think just overall finish, and just eliminating the little mistakes and the self-inflicted wounds, and just cleaning little things up. And we talk all the time about how important that one play can be. And I mean, you look at games last year, it came down to the last play. And how many plays led up to that, and you look in the games up to this point, maybe it's one or two plays that decide a game, and how important that is, and it's eliminating those things to put together a full game.
We'll get back out after it tomorrow at practice, then ultimately Saturday against Eastern Kentucky, a 1 o'clock kickoff. Joe, always appreciate the time to catch up with you, buddy.
Luke.
See you at practice tomorrow. Once again, that was Joe Hastings. We're going to take a break. When we come back, wide receiver Dante Hendrix will be our guest. You're listening to NES State Football and the NES State Coaches Show from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Indiana State preparing for Eastern Kentucky this Saturday at Memorial Stadium, 1 o'clock kick. One of the guys, you have heard me say his name time and time again throughout our broadcast, not just this year, but of course a year ago. Dante Hendrix, redshirt sophomore, is our guest. Dante, always good to see you. I know I obviously see you guys a lot throughout the week, but how's Dante doing today as you had an academic day today preparing for, I know, what's going to be a busy week for you guys?
Yep, I'm doing great. Got to take care of my academics and also get this film study in. I can't wait for this Saturday.
You mentioned just can't wait to get to Saturday. I know for you guys as a team, this is not a start that you guys wanted, but internally there is still that belief that you guys can get to where you want to go. Why is that? Why do you guys still have that belief that it can really get started this weekend against a quality opponent in Eastern Kentucky?
Right. Obviously, we want to be 2-0 at this point, but we're not. We can't dwell on the past. We got to keep moving forward. I believe that we just have many self-inflicted wounds that ended up hurting us in the first two games. Our defense played great versus Kansas, and I thought our offense was shaky, and vice versa with Dayton. But when we come together and we can play a full game, I know that we will be very hard to stop.
You've had, obviously, a good start to this season, a really good tail end of the year last year, which ultimately got you preseason all-conference honors. But for those that maybe don't know, your time here got started off very rocky because it was a really good fall camp for you your freshman year, but literally, I think a day before Eastern Illinois, you get an injury to your foot that knocks you out the whole season. And you miss your whole freshman year. When you think back to that moment, how has that year missing out, even if it's something you wish you probably didn't go through, how has that helped you, not just last year, but obviously this year and continuing to progress?
Yeah, that was a very tough time in my life. I'm on campus and I'm away from my family, and then boom, I'm out for the season. I had a great supporting staff, but I just took it day by day. I had great teammates here, great coaching staff. Coach Dave McManus helped me transform my body a lot, and I think I'm truly blessed that I missed that season.
You were a Kentucky 6A Player of the Year. You played a lot when you were in high school, had a lot of success. And then once you don't play a lot that freshman year, what was that jump like from your it was your redshirt freshman year last year? What was the biggest thing you were working on to make sure that you could make a splash that you thought you would do a year prior, but you just did it a year later?
Yeah, I think I'm very competitive, so just like watching my teammates go out there every single week fighting their butts off, and I couldn't do anything to help, that really hurt. So I knew that I could try my hardest in the weight room, take my academics very seriously, and just take it day by day, and eventually my time will come.
Dante Hendrix is our guest, wide receiver for Indiana State. Sycamore is getting ready for Eastern Kentucky this weekend. We are live from 7th and Elm, corner of Food and Fun here in Terre Haute for the Indiana State Coaches Show. Before we really progress towards Eastern Kentucky this weekend, you've grown up around football for a long time. You got 4 brothers, I believe. You have a brother that also went and played collegiately at Morehead State. Your dad, Chuck, played college football at Idaho State as well. How long has football been in your life, and when is your kind of first football memory? Because it seems like it's been ingrained in you for a long time.
Sure, yeah, my dad's been a coach his whole life, and I'd say ever since I was 4 or 5, I was around the football. I knew growing up I was very passionate about football. It was going to be my sport, especially when you have 4 older brothers. They're going to make you tough. They made me work for everything, and I'm truly blessed for them.
What's the most tough thing about being maybe the youngest of 4 brothers to be able to get you, though, prepared for what's been a good college experience for you?
Shoot, when you're younger and you think you can beat them up, and then you just get smacked, that'll toughen you up real quick, so I'm very fortunate for that.
Joe Hastings, who we talked to just a segment ago, coach, has been here now for the past 2 years after joining us after the 2017 year. What I like about watching Coach Hastings work with you guys is all of the little details he really reinforces with you guys each and every day. What's the biggest thing that Coach Hastings has taught you that you have felt has been able to be a reason why that you've been able to have success when you've stepped on the field?
Yeah, Coach Hastings, he's such a big teacher and mentor to me. He takes his job very seriously. You can always come talk to him outside of football, during football, and he's so nitpicky on the little things, and that's helped me so much.
Nitpicking on the little things. Speaking of a little thing, I know it ultimately didn't go down as a touchdown at Kansas, but it was the play going into the locker room or close to going into the locker room. What amazes me about watching that replay of you going up with one hand to get it is more in a split second, you have the wherewithal to move your foot to where it's close enough to be able to get back in for what looked, of course, to be a touchdown when you look at it through Sycamore eyes. I know those are biased eyes from my perspective. How have you been able to grow yourself athletically, gifted-wise? You mentioned Coach McManus helping you in the weight room. For you to be able to pull off what is very freakish athletic skill out on the football field?
I mean, it's just day by day, working hard every single day. You know, we do sideline drills every single day in practice. We do fades every single day in practice, so it just comes natural.
You mentioned coming natural. You guys as a room, seems like you have a lot of guys with natural skill set. What do you like, football side aside of it, what do you like about that group, just you guys as personalities? Because you do have a few personalities in that room too.
Yeah, we're extremely close. We're an extremely close group, and, you know, you'll always see us laughing and smiling at each other. You know, it's a true bond that we have, and we can't take it for granted.
Now, the other Dante told me the other day that he 30-balled you in 2K. I know you guys are very competitive with your video games as well as away from football. Has Coach Hastings picked up the controller at all? Is he competing with any of you guys? And
Nah.
he's watching you as you answer this too, so there is a little bit of pressure.
No, he's a little too scared. We have a PS4 in the offices, but no, he's never picked up a controller.
I'll see Coach Broomfield, Coach Funk. They'll get in on the fun every once in a while. We'll see if Coach Hastings can do that too. Before we really wrap up here, looking just forward to this weekend with Eastern Kentucky, a really quality opponent this weekend, a team that, of course, also has aspirations to make the playoffs just like you do here in Terre Haute. What are you most eager about with this group, just to get back out there, to be able to perform, and to do it against a team you know is going to give you a tremendous test on Saturday?
Yeah, first and foremost, EKU, they're a tremendous opponent, but I can't wait to get back out with my teammates tomorrow during practice, just take it day by day. You know, I think if we come together and we can play a complete game, that will be one of the hardest teams to stop come end of the season.
You know, I mentioned that your dad was a DB, so if you go back to his prime and he went up against you as a wide receiver here in your prime, who would win one-on-one? Would it be Dante or Chuck? Would Chuck shut you down, or would Dante find a way to make a play? I had an old mentor tell me, if it's one-on-one, it's one-on none. You got to make a play. So do you make a play against your dad?
Yeah, I would route him up, and I hope he's listening.
Well, I know Chuck is listening. We'll probably have some feedback for you. Dante, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate
Once again, that was Dante Hendrix. We're going to take a break. When we come back, going to be joined by the head football coach, Curt Mallory. We preview the Eastern Kentucky Colonels this weekend. You're listening to Indiana State football from Sycamore Athletics. Thanks for tuning in tonight for the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Big thanks to Joe Hastings, Dante Hendrix, Kyle Walsh, Indiana State men and women's cross-country coach, for joining us. Coach Mallory rejoins us here to preview Eastern Kentucky this weekend. It will be a 1 o'clock kick on Saturday afternoon at Memorial Stadium. Well, first things first, before I guess we get to the game, we did get a text from Chuck Hendrix. He said Dante would beat him one-on-one, but you said Dad's got to stick together. So
yeah.
You're going with Chuck.
I did. I went with Chuck. But now, yeah, he just texted me back.
Yeah,
so.
he did. So he said he's listening in. I knew he'd be listening in. Chuck always is. Let's look towards this weekend, Eastern Kentucky. And I know for maybe fans, when I say this, they may think I fell off my rocker for saying it a little bit. But I think Eastern Kentucky is going to be the best team you've played through 3 weeks. That's a no disrespect to Dayton, who you just saw, and no disrespect to Big 12 opponent Kansas. But when you look at the talent that Eastern Kentucky has this weekend, I think this is the best team that you've played so far.
Well, I would agree. That was what we talked about as a staff, and then throughout camp with our team, is that, obviously we felt like if we went and did what we could do and play capable football against Kansas, we'd have a chance to win. And coming back from that game, we felt, Dayton would be our biggest challenge. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get that one either. But I think looking at the film throughout the summer, you always look at 3 games. And those are the 3 games as you scout ahead, because typically you're going to get 2 under your belt going into the game like we do. And but in this case, we watched Eastern Kentucky throughout the summer and really felt this is a very talented team. very well-coached football team, and we felt going into it of the 3 games, this would probably be the best team.
Defensively, it seems like that is a major strength for Eastern Kentucky, kind of led by Aaron Patrick on that defensive line. They have a cast of others as well. I asked you this in your press conference earlier today, not to make you repeat yourself, but what do you like about their defense where Aaron Patrick and so many others are very capable of being not just a dominant defense within the Ohio Valley Conference? It's going to be one of the best defenses you see all year.
It is, and it starts up front, as we always talk about it, and they're very disruptive. They got 2 defensive ends. Trey Turner's one, and then obviously the one you mentioned, Aaron Patrick, who's a preseason All-American. And then inside, it's probably as good a D-line we're going to see. They have a young man, Elijah Turner, who is a transfer. And I remember watching him. He had come in from he transferred in and was a heck of a player. But these guys are disruptive, and you see that front 4, and that's where it starts. And then they got 3 linebackers who come around, and they'll hit you, and they're secondary sound. They contest every throw. But defensively, it's a well-coached football team.
Offensively for them, are they almost a mirror image of what you guys try to be? Because right now their numbers are very heavy rush, but again, that's with 2 games only underneath their belt against Valparaiso and Louisville. It does seem like they are a run-first team, just like you guys. It doesn't mean that you forget about guys like Dante Hendrix and weapons you have at wideout, but that's definitely going to be a point of emphasis, it seems like, for both teams on Saturday.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got a very good offensive line. Really, really like their running backs. They got 3 of them that you see in there playing. The one that starts and is Darryl McCleskey, and I watched him throughout the summer, and boy, is he runs hard. He comes out the other end. You see his leadership and how he performs, and of course you saw it in the Louisville game. I mean, he's fighting for every yard, and they have good size in the other 2. They have one young man is 250 pounds. They got another guy is 240. So both guys are a big physical presence back there. I really like their wide receivers. They block. Again, they remind me of the ones we have. They like the block. They're physical. They're very talented. And quarterback is he can run around. He can make some plays with his feet. But the ball comes out of his hand and he can throw it. So they're a good offense, they're a good defense, it's a good football team coming in.
You mentioned Connor Blount, their quarterback. He's a transfer from Oregon State. He's had experience in the Pac-12 conference. Even though it's just 2 games, can you tell he's a guy when you watch him at film that he just brings that experience with him and can command that offense for Eastern Kentucky?
Yeah, he's not he's not quick in his reads. I mean, he has good presence back there, and you can see he's got a calm demeanor, and he gets out there, and it's hard to disrupt him. I mean, I'll tell you what, Louisville's an impressive defense. When you watch them fly around and the speed and how they close, he didn't get rattled back there. He was very comfortable. He could make some plays. He could extend some plays. He made some things happen on Saturday night with their offense.
Let's close on your team here, Coach. We've talked about it throughout this show. I think the biggest thing when you go through a weekend like you just did, there can be a lot of panic. There can be a lot of chaos maybe on the outside. But as Coach Hastings alluded to, too, there's none of that internally with your team. How do you make sure that stays that way, that you make sure that as you talk with your guys, you got to be able to block out that noise and you got to be able to focus and listen to you guys as a coaching staff and follow what you guys do starting tomorrow, which actually technically starts Sunday because game week is all week. But it's one of those things where they just got to continue to progress in that area.
Well, our philosophy is simple. You win with people, and we got a great group of people, and it starts with sticking together through thick and thin. We win together, we lose together. We're all in it together, and Joe said it too. We all enjoy working together. We enjoy working with these young men. They enjoy playing for us, but it's a family, and you're going to have some good days and you're going to have bad days, and you want to be around good people. And we got great people here at Indiana State.
I got to tell you, Coach, I'm looking forward to winning together on Saturday.
Let's go.
It's going to be a fun one. Saturday against Eastern Kentucky, Coach. Right. Appreciate the time as always.
All right,
that was head coach Curt Mallory. Again, a big thank you to everybody for joining us here tonight. Dante Hendrix, Joe Hastings, and as well as Kyle Walsh. We'll be sure to join you next Monday night, but before that, join us this Saturday, 1 o'clock kick, Indiana State and Eastern Kentucky from Memorial Stadium. Pepsi countdown to kickoff. Join Fritzy and myself starting at noon on Saturday. So until then, go Sycamores.